Picture this: a young man born into unimaginable wealth. His family owns everything: skyscrapers, technology companies, banks that move billions. He is the sole heir to an empire so vast most people can't comprehend it. From birth, his life was mapped out: elite schools, Ivy League universities, executive training, all leading to one destination: the throne of a business kingdom. But this heir didn't want any of it. While other wealthy heirs flaunted their privilege, he felt suffocated. The luxury felt like a prison. Every smile directed at him felt fake, every friendship transactional. He craved something real, something authentic. He wanted to know what it felt like to be seen for who he was, not for the zeros in his bank account or the empire attached to his last name. So he made a decision that would change everything. He walked away from it all. One night, without telling anyone, he disappeared. He changed his identity, created a new background story, and reinvented himself as an ordinary person. No fancy cars, no penthouse apartments, no designer clothes. He rented a tiny studio apartment in a modest neighborhood, got a regular job at a small marketing firm, and lived on. A paycheck like millions of other people. For the first time in his life, he felt free. At his new workplace, nobody knew who he really was. His colleagues treated him like an equal, invited him to lunch, and shared their lives with him. It was intoxicating, this feeling of belonging. That's when he met her, a woman who worked in the same building. She was intelligent, ambitious, beautiful, and completely unimpressed by material wealth. She actually scolded him once for buying expensive coffee. He fell for her completely. They started dating, and for the first time, he experienced what he thought was genuine love. After 6 months of the most beautiful relationship he'd ever experienced, he decided to propose. He bought a simple ring with his own savings, nothing compared to what he could afford with his real identity, but it meant everything because he earned it himself. She said yes with tears in her eyes, and he felt like the luckiest man alive. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. One evening, he decided to surprise her at her apartment. He had picked up flowers and her favorite dessert. When he arrived, he noticed the door was slightly open. As he approached, he heard voices, her voice and another man's voice, but not just any man. He recognized that voice. It belonged to his closest friend from his previous life, someone he had trusted completely before disappearing. He stood frozen at the doorway, hidden from view. Their conversation unfolded. His was laughing, a harsh, mocking laugh he had never heard before. She talked about how pathetic he was, how easy it had been to manipulate him. His friend joined in the ridicule. Then came the real blow. They had known who he was all along. They were after his family's trade secrets, patents worth billions. They planned to blackmail him, steal critical documents, and sell them to competitors. If he didn't cooperate, they would destroy his family's reputation with fabricated scandals. The man standing at that doorway was not the same man who had walked away from his empire months ago. Something inside him shattered, not just his heart, but something deeper. The last piece of innocence, of hope, of belief in human goodness, it all crumbled into dust. He left silently, without confronting them, but he didn't run away. Not this time. He disappeared again, but this time with a purpose that burned like ice in his veins. For days, his family panicked, thinking something terrible had happened to their heir. Meanwhile, his and friend began executing their plan. stealing documents, manipulating situations, and setting up scenarios to take down the family empire. The company started falling apart. Stock prices plummeted, major deals collapsed, investors pulled out. The media had a field day with the scandal. His elderly father, the man who built this empire, from nothing, became ill from the stress. Everything the family had worked for across generations was crumbling, and at the center of it all were two people driven by pure greed. But what they didn't know was that he was watching everything, every meeting, every transaction, every lie. He saw it all, and in the shadows he was transforming. The kind-hearted young man who wanted to believe in love was gone. In his place emerged someone colder, sharper, more calculating than they could have imagined. He began using resources they didn't know existed: anonymous accounts, private investigators, digital experts. He assembled an invisible army. Slowly, he started dismantling their plan. Business deals mysteriously fell through, evidence surfaced in the wrong hands, allies abandoned them without explanation. At the same time, he was secretly saving his family's company. Using shell corporations, he bought falling stock, secured new contracts, and slowly stabilized what his betrayers had tried to destroy. The psychological warfare he waged was masterful. He made his betrayers paranoid, turning them against each other. Seeds of doubt planted here, a missing document there. He made them feel the same confusion they had inflicted on him. Finally, he decided it was time. He called for an emergency board meeting, claiming to have evidence of the conspiracy. The room filled with board members, his parents, and of course, his former and friend, who thought they were about to witness their victory. The doors opened, and he walked in, not as the humble employee they had mocked, but as he truly was, the heir to the empire, dressed in a bespoke suit that cost more than most people's cars, carrying himself with the authority of someone born to rule. The color drained from their faces as they realized the magnitude of their mistake. He didn't need to say much. He simply presented the evidence: recordings of their conversations, proof of theft, documentation of fraud, everything laid out with devastating clarity. Security personnel were already waiting outside. Police were ready with warrants. Their entire scheme unraveled in minutes, and they were led away in handcuffs as the very people they had tried to manipulate watched. His family's empire was not just saved, it emerged stronger than before. The publicity from exposing the conspiracy actually increased public trust. Stock prices soared. New opportunities emerged. He was hailed as a hero, a brilliant strategist who had protected his family's legacy. But here's the tragedy that nobody talks about in these revenge stories. As he stood at the top of his family's building that night, looking down at the city lights, surrounded by luxury and power, he felt nothing. The sweet taste of revenge he had imagined tasted like ash. He had destroyed his enemies completely, yes. He had saved his family, yes. But in the process, he had also destroyed the part of himself that could still feel joy, that could still trust, that could still hope for something real. The young man who had dreamed of simple happiness was gone forever. In his place stood someone who had everything money could buy, but nothing that made life worth living. He had become exactly what he had tried to escape: a powerful, untouchable figure isolated by walls of wealth and suspicion. He had destroyed them, but in doing so, he had destroyed himself too. And that perhaps was the cruelest twist of all. Victory had never felt so much like defeat. This is the story of the heir who destroys everything, including the person he used to be.